Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Not actually going to be doing anything out here today, but I was watching some old stuff. People who've long since stopped posting on YouTube, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking back on those times where I would comment on their videos, they would come over and comment on mine, and there would be interactions and even comments on video A about somebody else's video. Yeah, and they were good times. I firmly believe those times have gone. They're not there anymore. We've still got orchid channels, don't get me wrong, there's still orchid channels there, and there's some very good ones. There's some long-term ones still hanging in there, doing very well, some of them. There's some newer ones, but that interaction between the orchid growers, the hobbyists, just doesn't seem to be there as much as it used to be. And I think a lot of it is that an awful lot of the people that are commenting and watching multiple channels are not necessarily what you'd call a grower as such. They probably got some orchids, probably in the home, in the main, not across the board, but not, you know, the greenhouses and the dedicated areas and the larger collections and things like that just don't seem to be around anywhere near as much as they used to be. There's some still there, don't get me wrong. And I sat back and I sort of questioned, why do we do it as a hobby? Why do we do it? I mean, it's almost impossible to be within the orchid hobby as a hobbyist and not have failures. There's quite a few other hobbies where you don't tend to get failures, or very rarely. You know, like if you go kayaking, that's probably successful every time you go, you know. Kayak goes in water, paddles move up and down or whatever, and you move around and you see some nice scenery, yeah. Providing you don't go over a waterfall, then you'd probably class that as a successful day out. People who go fishing, most of the time when you go fishing you catch something. If you don't catch any fish, you'll probably catch a cold, but you know, but then you've got out in the fresh air. To get to where you do the fishing, you probably walk through some nice countryside. You know, it's difficult to see it as a failure, but with orchids you will get out and out failures. You will get plants that just die, and you may never know why. And it's part of it. We have to put up with it. So I'll ask the question quite a few times in this chat. Why do we do it? Well, relatively speaking, the units in our hobby, the individual orchids, do not cost huge amounts of money relative to some other hobbies. Now obviously if your hobby is a kayak, you tend to only buy it once, don't you? And perhaps upgrade now and again, but you're not, they cost a lot of money, yes, but you're not buying them frequently. If you go fishing, you've got, you know, kit that will wear out. Replacements, you know. Every time you chuck your line across the stream and it hooks up in a tree and most of it stays there and you can't be bothered to walk across the stream and get it back, you just leave it to wrap round the birds. Yeah, that'll do. But you know what I mean. We lose orchids. We try and minimize that. That's part of the hobby, is trying to minimize that. And that requires knowledge. That requires finding out why perhaps an orchid died in the first place or went downhill badly and trying not to do that again, if you see what I mean. So there's some investigation required to keep it going. That's a gain of knowledge. We as a species love doing that sort of thing. So, you know, if you have an orchids as a hobby, you can venture into a new genus every now and again. You'll probably do a bit of work before you do it to see if it's suitable. So there's a knowledge gaining exercise as part of the growing. I mean, as we've seen, the conditions that orchids grow in vary considerably, you know, from cold, damp, cloud forest type things to bright conditions, hot, cold, you know, it varies considerably. And part of the success is gained from knowing as much as you can. So the thing I think that gets me more than anything is finding out why something's going wrong and then working out, can I avoid it in the future, and working towards that. But one of the main things, I think, is what I consider a bit of a magic word: anticipation. It's what's coming next. And sometimes that can surprise you. A lot of the time, a bit of patience is involved. But, you know, over here, this cymbidium with the 3 spikes. The spikes have been there some time. They have actually extended in height recently. The buds are starting to swell nicely, but they haven't opened yet. And this is the anticipation. How long before these buds open? I probably come and check every day, and so I probably don't see them changing much. You know, could do with going away for a week and coming back, and the chances are one might be open by then, who knows. But there's anticipation all over the cymbidiums at the moment. Yeah, it's tucked away in places, but it's there, you know. There's spikes showing in many places. And then you come over to here. This is a virused cymbidium. Take a risk owning it when you've got other plants. But we've got the anticipation. That sheath is just starting to split. So you can see the buds on the top of the spike actually pushing through the sheath. Another nice one here. So even on a virus cymbidium that isn't necessarily doing very well, you've still got the anticipation of watching a spike push through a sheath and then wondering how many buds there'll be. Anticipation over here. This one's definitely combined with patience. If you're going to grow Paphiopedilums, if you haven't got patience, you're going to get annoyed with them because they are painfully slow in most of the things they do. So we've got the anticipation of this bud opening soon, but not yet. Yeah, there's another one coming on behind. That'll be ages yet. So it's anticipation of things to come. And it's not just the buds, it's not just the anticipation of blooms to come, it's also how well growths might do. I mean, this black hair type dendrobium here, it's got no name, it's a hybrid, but it has gorgeous blooms. There's no buds on it at the moment, but it's got this new cane here and this new cane here. Now that's a worry because they're not mature yet. That's the height it gets to. What are these two going to do? Are they going to stall because it's winter time and these like to be a lot warmer than it is in here? So it's not in ideal conditions. But it's survived a few winters now, so it will survive the winters. But am I going to stall these two canes because of the low temperatures? And that's purely down to the time of year they started growing. They started late in the growing season. If they'd started at the right time in the growing season, they'd be up there by now. So, with me, a lot of it is anticipation. I mean, I don't know whether I can I see through the sea of green over here? If you look along the glass, in the distance there, is my Laelia anceps spike. Now the anticipation waiting for the buds to form, firstly to see how many I'm going to get. The fact that the plant's a bit poorly at the moment, I'll be happy with 1. 2 would be good, 3 will be brilliant. We will have to wait and see. But it's pushing on, it's not going to stall. And the reason, it's a Laelia anceps, and they're a cooler growing Cattleya type. So this isn't harsh conditions for it. Whereas a couple of my other Cattleyas are not happy at all. It's far too cold. But that'll do okay. And then you've got the anticipation of that opening up in the future. That goes back to the story that goes with it. One of the first shows I ever went to, there was a nice specimen Laelia anceps with quite a few spikes on it in full bloom. And I just stood there with my mouth open, just in awe of the colour, the shape, everything about it. Just that was it. I just had to have one. Unfortunately, I couldn't have that one. That was a long time ago as well. And it took me a while before I actually got hold of a Laelia anceps, but I did eventually get one. Now that didn't take kindly to its last repot, and it ended up getting split as well. And the other part of it went to a friend. Hopefully she's going to be successful with it, because again, it's one of her favourite blooms as well. So, and then you've got rescues as well, things that are not growing very well, that you put the effort into getting that plant in the best set of circumstances you can actually achieve, and then you patiently wait to see if it's going to work. Is it going to recover? And then you see a new growth and you think, oh, at least it's got a chance. And then you just hope that that new growth will push on, get some decent roots going, and, you know, recover the plant. So I don't know. If somebody said, why do you do it? Why do you grow orchids? Well, I'm fascinated by the many different types. I'm fascinated by the many different shapes and colours of the blooms and fragrances. All that sort of thing is in there, but I've got an added interest. And it's called what I'm doing now. Because if I didn't have my YouTube channel and the associated income that goes with it, and thanks for all those people who do that for me, the memberships, the buy me a coffee now and again, the super chats, the patrons on the Patreon site, all those contributions allow me to be here and have this orchid collection. Because if I didn't have that extra income, I couldn't be here in this house, because I can't afford it. My normal money does not warrant this place. And a lot of the additional cost of this place is what we're standing in. It's the conservatory. That adds a lot of price to a rental property in this country. So without my YouTube channel, when I moved out of my mum's place, I'd have probably had to give up most of my orchids. Yeah? So my YouTube channel is incredibly important, and the income it provides. It allows this to exist in this house. And those that are interested, you know, have watched me recover the garden from rubbish to something, and the interest with that as well. So that's part of what it's all about for me. And I still see my YouTube channel as a job, because I get income from it. My orchid growing and repotting and all that sort of stuff, taking some plants to shows, going to shows, that's my hobby. You know, I'd like to think that if income wasn't a wasn't a factor, that I'd do that anyway, even if I didn't have a YouTube channel. Yeah, but I have got a YouTube channel and I treat it as a job. So it's something that I have to try and put some effort into each day when I can. And on that note, it's the Orchid Society's Christmas do tomorrow. So we won't be doing any filming tomorrow. We will be sitting down in good company, enjoying a nice home-style cooked meal, Christmas lunch. Excellent stuff with Hannah, and then we'll have a quieter Sunday before I have to take Hannah back again. So there we go. And I've also got a bonus because my daughter is also interested in orchids. Not to the extent I am, but she's got some. She knows quite a bit about them. She knows a lot more than people think, because in the orchid world she's relatively young, and a lot of people just think she's like a hanger-on and doesn't know anything. Well, they should listen when she speaks. She knows a lot. She's picked up a lot from being around. So yes, so that's it for today. It's just a chat, and it's a subject that if a psychiatrist had to go at us, they'd probably declare us nuts, certifiable, just for going through the motions, you know. Yeah. How many plants have you lost? Ooh, so. And you're still buying more? Well, yeah. Does that sound like a sane person? Probably not to a lot of people. It's like when you get really bad drivers, you know. Ooh, I crashed another one this week. Why'd you drive? Oh, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, as I say, that'll do for today. But yeah, I think anticipation. What's to come next? What is going to happen next? And sometimes you won't know. I mean, I've got a classic example here. What is that? I haven't had this plant long. I don't know whether that's going to be a spike or a new growth. I don't know. Now, I could sit down and spend an hour on the internet and probably find out. But I don't want to. I want to wait and see. That's the anticipation. And I like that. I don't necessarily like knowing exactly what's going to happen next. I like the element of surprise. So, yeah, that'll do for today. Just a chat. Perhaps set a few brains thinking about, you know, your own lot. Why do you do it? At what point do you get maximum enjoyment from your hobby? Have you got other hobbies? Is orchids just one of many? Lots of people grow orchids in amongst other types of plants. So they're just a type of plant within plant growing, you know. And especially if you get down to the places where you can grow your orchids outside year round, they become part of your garden, part of your outside space. And they're decorative in that outside space when you're sitting relaxing with your glass of whatever your thing is. You've got orchid blooms decorating the patio, you know, the trellises, all that sort of thing. So they, you know, they're decorative as well as other elements. So yeah, I enjoy coming out here, not so much at the moment. It's flipping freezing out here because I've had the lounge door shut because I'm having a lazy day basically. So I want to be warm, so I don't want all my heat coming out here. The orchids don't mind the cold. We've switched from those that like it being warm. I mean, I've got the anticipation of a whole tray full of plants here. What's going to happen with this lot next year? We will get some blooms, but will we get blooms on all of them? How much growth will we get? These are all, not all, but a lot of young plants, a lot of the new growths from the start of this year that have, you know, pushed on a bit as the years progressed, and now they're doing very little. They'll push on again when the longer days come. So we've got all this to look forward to. I have had Deisas in the past, a long time ago now, and I did manage to get a couple to bloom. But then I repotted them all at once and they all rotted and died within a few weeks of being repotted. Now these have all either been repotted or potted on, and we've lost a couple. They're tucked in under here. There's a few pots in there with no green. Now there could be some dormant plants in there that might start sprouting up come the spring. But if not, I've lost a couple. And some of that was when the staging collapsed and they fell out of their pots. So they didn't get a good start in life because they hadn't long been repotted. So throwing them out of their pot on the floor didn't do them a lot of good. But this is a lot of plants. If you actually tried to count the actual number of plants that are in these pots, you'd be there a long time for a start. I mean, just have a quick look at, let's just take that one. How many actual plants are in that pot? And the larger ones are highly likely to bloom. So that pot alone could have 3, maybe 4 spikes. Yeah. This one again, 2, 3, maybe 4 spikes. Who knows? And that's the anticipation. And the blooms are gorgeous. Unusual shape in the orchid world. And quite honestly, these are my easiest orchids to look after. Once they're in the right size pot and you've got the right media for them and you've got somewhere to stand them in water, that's all you need to do. I mean, I change that water about every between 8 and 10 days. It takes me about 20 minutes to change the water because I've got to lift each individual pot out and put it in the duplicate tray that I've got. That leaves that tray empty of pots, and then I've just got to empty the water out, give it a quick rinse and store it dry. Whereas the tray that they've been lifted into, I just slide back in there and pour the water in. How much care is that? No, okay, it's different to how the other orchids are growing in here, but you know, it's doing okay. They're doing okay, sorry. Right, that'll do. I'm off back in the warm and get this door pulled across a bit. And yeah, this is just one of those food for thought chats really, about just sit back every now and again in a place where you can see a lot of your orchids, if not all of them, and think about, why are they there? Why do I do it? What do I really get out of it? And when you've finished those thoughts, you might actually feel not euphoric, but quite pleasantly surprised about how much enjoyment you actually get from being in the position to be able to see these plants growing and coming up and blooming. It's good stuff. And with that, I shall see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.